Hey, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss anything related to engineering, technology, and finance. Now, I think you're gonna like this video. This is our next step into the cloud. Now, the interesting thing is just the other day, I had a Zoom session with a bunch of different folks and we were learning different topics about the cloud. And we were actually looking to learn Linux specifically in the cloud. Now, recently I did a video where I addressed the benefits of learning Linux in the cloud. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll make sure I link that video for you so that way you can go watch that video. And then once you're done, come back to this one and we'll continue on our journey into the cloud. Now, during the call, we learned a lot of really cool things, but I think at a basic level, we're learning how to create a EC2 instance and how to connect to it, right? That's your basic thing. How do I create a virtual server, specifically Linux, and then just connect to it in the cloud? Now we're gonna take a look at how we do that. But before we do, this video assumes that you have two things already in place. Number one, you have an AWS account. Simple enough, right? Number two, you also have an IAM user, and that user is able to make adjustments as far as EC2 instances, creating and deleting them, right? And then also as well, this user has the ability to make sure that they're able to make modifications to security groups. So with those two things out of the way, here's some of the topics that we'll cover in this video. So that way, not only are you gonna learn how to create an EC2 instance or a virtual server specifically running Linux in the cloud, but you're also gonna learn on these topics. So we go over AMIs and what they are. We talk a little bit about what instance types are. And we also talk about horizontal and vertical scaling. Then we do a little bit of a deep dive on key pairs. Then we go over security group. We talk a little bit about IP addresses and what the differences are between a public and a private IP address. We go over some Putty configurations for my users who are using Windows. And if you're using Mac or Linux, don't worry, we got you covered. There's a section in there on what you can do in order to connect using a Unix-like machine. And lastly, I threw the team a little bit of a wrench and hopefully they're able to figure it out. They actually did, fun fact. But it took them a little bit to get there, and that's one of the key beautiful things about learning, right? You ask the questions, you struggle through it a little bit, but ultimately you figure it out, and it's a really awesome feeling to see folks figure out the problem. So let's jump into the next step of creating an EC2 instance running Red Hat, and we're gonna load that up in AWS, and we're gonna connect to it. And that's going to be the next step in our journey into the cloud.
We're going to create a Red Hat EC2 instance. I'm not going to be doing a bunch of this stuff. I'm going to put everybody else on the spot. So you guys can all walk me through and we'll learn together as we go along. Melissa, what's the first thing that we do here? Where do we head?
So in order to get to this screen, I guess I just typed in EC2 in the search box. And I just went to this EC2, which led me to this page.
Okay.
And then I came down to instances here on the left-hand side. I guess I could hit here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just clicked on launch instances. And then just named my instance. So I'm going to call this 5 because I've done it like 4 or 5 times. And then
quick question.
Yes.
Will this cost us anything? I've never actually gone through this, so okay.
No, I'll show you where that's shown.
So
okay.
Real quick, actually, and sorry to interrupt here, but for those who don't know, AWS actually gives you a free tier on their account. They're going to have you sign up with a credit card. I don't worry about, the reason why they have you sign up, A, they're trying to see if you're a real person or not, but B, if you do anything that goes over their free account, they're obviously going to bill you for it. So Melissa is going to actually walk us to how to get the free stuff. When we're learning, it's just going to be free. So keep that in mind.
Okay. Cool. And I'm basically going to follow just the defaults, but I'm going to select the Red Hat operating system here. And then I'm going to
Well, what about the AMI? So does everybody know when I say AMI what that is?
Amazon machine image.
Sure, but what does that mean?
Is it
image of the machine?
Is it the default image of the operating system that you want to use? Perhaps it has specific packages loaded for your image for your company.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so Ronald hit the nail on the head as far as it's an image of the operating system with a basic level of packages. So for those who don't know what an image is, that gives you an idea of what you're doing. You're selecting the operating system with a base set of packages. They bundled it
Mhm.
together and put it as in what's called an image. So now moving on now to instance type. What is instance type?
This is like its configuration as far as how much memory, how much CPU it has. And again, there's a couple of free tier eligible ones on here. So I would definitely make sure that it was one of the free tiers. So like T2.micro, I guess is very, very small, 1 CPU, 1 gigabyte of memory. If you were to scroll through, you could see the other options, which are, it goes up in CPU, up in memory. So you like on this one is 8 CPU, 15 gig of memory. It goes, there's lots of different various options here. Actually, the list is very, very long. So there's 2 at the top here. That's free tier eligible. I'm going to just select one of those.
So
Which
here's
was
a
already-
question. Here's a question
Yep.
for the team. So all these options that you have here, right? So I'm when you click on that the instance type and you bring down the list there, I see here, like for example, T2 micro is 1 gig of memory and T2 small is 2 gig of memory. Is that considered a vertical scaling, or is that considered horizontal scaling?
If you're adding more resources to the same machine, that's considered vertical.
Mhm.
But if you're expanding into more machines, that's horizontal.
Perfect, Ronald. Thank you for that description.
So the key pair, here's a question for you, Lewis.
Mhm.
So every time I create a new instance, I also create a new key pair, but do I need to create a new key pair for each instance, or can I use the same key pair for multiple instances?
You can use the same key pair for instance. Now, for those on the call, can you tell me what a key pair is?
Yeah, so you would usually have a private key and a public key. The machine is going to have the private key and you would use the public key to connect to it instead of like using a password.
Okay, cool. And it's for authentication, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So is that a form of symmetrical or asymmetrical?
This would be asymmetric.
Can you tell me a little bit of what
Oh.
that is?
Yeah, so with symmetric and asymmetric, with symmetric it's you have one key that is gonna do the encrypting and decrypting. With asymmetric you would have 2 keys, a private and a public one, where there's some cases that this is not true, but in most cases the private key would do the decryption while the public key would do the encryption.
Okay. So by the way, everybody, if you don't know what he just mentioned, I just put something in the chat for you. So you can go ahead and click that and it'll tell you all about, that little section of cryptography, and it'll explain what the difference is between asymmetric and symmetric. And if you scroll up a little bit, there's a nice little pretty picture and it shows you what that looks like. So that is symmetric, as we were just talking about. So one key in order to do the encryption and decryption, and then asymmetric in the bottom shows you 2 keys. You have your public and your private, or as called secret key, and you use that for encryption on the public side, and then decryption on the private side.
All right, so to create the new key, just click on create new key pair,
Yep.
give it a name. I'm going to call this 5 key pair. And then I need to select the .ppk at the bottom. Private key, this is the format that we use
Question.
for using for Putty, because I'm going to be using Putty for my terminal.
That was my question. When would I want to use PEM?
For use with OpenSSH, but I don't know what that is.
So can anyone tell me what that means?
In my case, I'm using another system, another Linux machine to connect to my virtual machine in the cloud. So I have to download the PM, which is a crypto file, onto my machine, and it uses that file in order to do the authentication, the SSH authentication.
Des, where do I send you your check?
I'm sorry, Des, repeat that again.
So it's a file that holds the key that you're able to transfer between the systems and use that file to connect to the system that you're SSHing to.
Well,
which would
that
be your
makes
cloud
sense.
machine.
So
Makes-
so Des actually, I don't know if you realize, but you actually hit the nail on the head, but I don't know if you really realize why. So he said a key thing in his sentence. He says, I am using a Linux machine. So for those who are using a Unix-like or machine, so for example, your Mac or your Linux machines, they already have Open SSH built or SSH built into the OS, right? So when you're creating your EC2 instance, you don't want the PPK because the PPK is associated for folks who are on Windows and are using Putty. In your particular case, when you're going to open up your terminal in Linux or in Mac OS, right? You're going to say, hey, open up the terminal, and then you're going to say SSH-I, and then you give it your file, which is going to be the .pem. So that's really the difference, right? One is for Windows and one is for Unix-like machines. Now, fun fact too, if you download the PPK, you can convert the PPK over to a PEM and vice versa. And for those, we're actually going to do a little demonstration on that later. So if you are on Windows, make sure you get the PPK. If you're on Mac or you're on Linux, go ahead and get the PEM.
So I'm going to go ahead and create this key pair, the PPK, since I'm on a Windows. And that's downloaded to my desktop right there.
We're going to talk a little bit about the network settings. So from a cloud perspective, can anyone tell me what security groups are in the cloud?
Security groups would be defined as basically, I mean, it's something that you create in IAM. And a security group means like different groups are allowed different privileges. And you only allow them the minimum privileges that you only allow them to be able to do what they need. Like anything that you don't think that they will ever need, you don't give them that kind of access, like, or that kind of view. I guess that's me defining it in my own words, but it's not necessarily I don't know if it's the description that you look.
So how does that relate to network setting?
You don't want your network, okay, you wouldn't want your users to be able to access certain things. They should only have view of what they need and within the system, such as it's just like, for example, if you're creating different users on the system, people that don't need access to Etsy files that are in Etsy directory don't need to be able to even view it, in my opinion.
So there's one word that I'm looking for.
Privileges?
No. It starts with an F.
Firewall?
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So a security group is basically a virtual firewall. So what it does is it controls ingress and egress. So does everybody know what ingress and egress means?
Oh, please explain.
So ingress basically means traffic that's coming into your environment, and egress is traffic that's going out of your environment. Right? So look at it right there where it says, what does ingress mean? The act of entering, right? Or egress is the act of, going out, right? So when we think of, your EC2 instance and you're saying, hey, what security groups am I attaching to this? You're basically saying, hey, I'm giving you the rules of who's allowed to come in and who's allowed to go out. That's exactly what you're doing. So what I'm going to say here for this one, let's go ahead and select an existing security group. Let's go ahead and click on the select the security groups drop down. Excellent. And just click on the default one. So now as far as like the configuration storage goes, we can leave that as is. We don't have to really go into too much there. I think we have everything that we need now. So I would just say, let's go ahead and start up our instance.
All right, so that's been created. I'm going to hit view all instances to go ahead and pull up that instance.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's down here 5. It's running. It's going to go through two checks, but even though it's initializing, we can still get access to it at this point. If I just go ahead and click the instance, I'm going to copy this link here. So click this little icon here to copy.
So quick
That's the-
question.
Yep.
Can somebody tell me why can I just use the IPv4 address, the private one? What if I want to use that?
Because it's a private IP address, therefore you won't be able to access it from outside of the network.
Ah, so good stuff, Des. So remember, there's something called a public IP address, and there's something that's called a private IP address. Why would I have two? That doesn't make sense to me. Can anyone tell me why would I have two addresses?
There is a, if I recall in my networking days, there's a limited amount of IP addresses available to the entire world right now because basically we have 4 octets, and because of that, there's so many need for IP addresses. The IP addresses that are available made public had to be segmented. So each company will use certain IP addresses, but within their network, they have private IP addresses that communicate to the world. It's like, for example, if I send a mail to under your name to your home address, you'll have your name and address, but within that house, you may have multiple people within that house, and that address has to go to you, to Lewis. Whereas, so that's your first name is like your private address, whereas your last name, your wife may have the same last name, your children may have the same last name. It kind of like in that realm. If I don't know if I explained it in a way that others will understand it, but that's how I understand it.
Yes.
And
So that is actually pretty good. Real quick, I'll give folks one last thing. And then I think somebody else had something else to say, and we'll go after that. But I brought up a calculator here to show everybody how this works. So if you look at how IP addresses are actually created, they're actually created by what's called a 32-bit address. So basically 32 individual characters, right? And they're either made up of ones and zeros, which is binary. We can talk later exactly what that means. But if you were to do the actual math on that, right? So 2, why 2? Because when you look at a binary number, there's only 2 states it can be on, either 1 or 0. Now, if you're doing 32 addresses now, right, or 32 bits in total, this is how many devices total you can have in the world. 4,294,967,296 total devices in the world. Now, with so many people in the world, right? And for example, in my house alone, I have anywhere between 30 to 40 devices, and they all need an IP address, and we're just one house. Multiply it by the millions of people in the world, this is not enough. So what happens now, a way to cheat the system in a sense, is they will give everybody one public IP address, and then they have something that's called a NAT, network address translation, and then it will translate your address into what's called a private IP address. So for example, let's say in your home you have, I don't know, 500 devices, right? Each one of them will have their own private IP address, right? And then whenever we are going to communicate, they're going to send the information to the public IP address, and then it's the router's job, or the NAT, network address translation, to translate, hey, who is this supposed to go for out of the 500 devices that I have in my home? And that's a way of how we can conserve this amount of IP address for everybody in the world. And even still, that's not enough. And we can talk a little bit later as to what they're doing to resolve that today, but that just gives you an idea of how that works. So it's a combination of the two. So does everybody get that? Let's give the floor back to Melissa, and she can walk us through on how we can set up our Putty. So does everybody have Putty, by the way?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't quite know what that is.
Putty basically is a free SSH client, is what it is. And if you don't have it, and you're on Windows, I'm going to send a link in the chat where you can download it.
Yeah, here's the download area. And you can just download that. It'll come onto your computer when you just install it. It's a quick install, very, very quick. But once you have it installed, then we're going to, like I said, we copied the public key here, the public link here. And I'm going to open up my Putty, and it's going to open up something like this. You probably get a little image at the front first. But then you just paste your host name into this space here. And then you're going to go to SSH and go to auth. And this is where we're going to browse to find our key. Remember the key that we just created? So I know that mine was called 5 key pair. Select that and open that. And then I also will, well, for me personally, I like to change my appearance. So I just got to change appearance and make the text bigger. And then you just click on open to sign in. Now you can save this login. Where's that place where you save it?
So you go under session.
Under session. Where's session? Where's session? Where's session?
All the way in the top.
Oh, right here. So you can, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say, all these settings that you're putting in right now, they don't save with Putty, right? So what we have to do in this particular case is we have to save the session. And so what you would do is you would give it a name, which is under the save section box. And so, for example, if you wanted to call it 5, whatever, yeah. And then after that, you can go into saving your settings, and it'll save it there. So then the next time that you bring up Putty again, and it doesn't have any of your settings, all you have to do is click the name of what you called it. So in this case, 5 settings, and then you hit load, and then all your settings come back up, and then you're ready to go.
Okay.
Now, can anybody tell me why it's not working?
Did I miss something? I think I missed something. I must have missed something.
I don't think I saw her use the key she generated to copy to access it.
Yeah, let me do this over because I was kind of distracted there for a second. So let's do this again. New session.
Did you attach your key?
I'm going to do it from scratch. I'm going to put that in. I'm going to attach my key. Auth. Open. I'm just going to open it. Is it because I'm already logged in as a different user on this one?
That one is a different machine. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So like, for example, did you copy your EC2 501785?
I copied this one here is 5, I believe is 5.
Right, so let's bring up our Putty again. Right.
Close that out.
Out of that. Yeah, let's do a new session. Can anyone help me out here? What should go into the host name?
The IP address, the public IP address.
Okay, or can we use the host name as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if it's resolvable.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. It is resolvable.
Okay.
So double check that that's the host name. So you can bring up Putty again, see what you got there. EC2 501785 189. Okay, good. All right, and then you attach the key, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually what I do.
So you don't see what she's missing.
I don't know what is it.
So can anyone help me here?
No, that's what I was saying. I honestly don't see what she's missing. Is it the are we communicating on different port or something?
It's all new to me.
All right. So-
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I'm not sure. Go ahead.
So Des, you're a little either Ron or Des. I need your help. What can we do? I mean, it looks to me like we have the key, we have the host name. What's going on? What would you guys do?
Oh,
Is it the
Okay.
firewall.
One
maybe?
thing.
Wait,
One thing I
what?
was checking. One thing I was checking when I was creating mine. I had to set it so that that host is accessible from my current location or my current IP address at my house. I don't know if she did that because she used an existing security group and I had to create a brand new one. So um,
Have we checked if the port is open on the actual machine?
So does everybody have the chat open?
I wasn't paying attention
Yeah.
to it. Security group 000.
So
Okay.
Evelyn, oh, I don't think she has a mic because she's just typing in the chat, but
So
what
do I
is
need to
what
plug-
is 000 mean? What is that?
From
Port
everywhere.
Gateway.
Any,
I have
to-
like anybody from anywhere can access it.
Cool. So it sounds to me like we're having an issue just talking to the box. So I think we need to go back into the security groups and make sure that we can talk to the box. So Melissa, bring up the AWS console, and we're in the instance already. So let's go and head over to our security group. So can anyone tell me how to fix this problem?
Let me see. Inbound count.
Do we need to create a new security group?
Hold on.
You don't necessarily have
as
to
long as
create a
the
new one. You can use the existing.
run the accessibility analyzer.
Louis, would it have something to do with creating a role?
Mhm.
So Louis, just so you know, I created 4 different instances yesterday.
Yep.
And I didn't, when I did it, I didn't, I just used the default settings, which I didn't select that default security group.
Mhm.
And I didn't have this problem. So it's only because I selected that default security group why it seems as if we're having this issue right now.
Mhm. So I intentionally booby trapped you guys. I need to make sure that you guys know how to troubleshoot these things, right? This is the point of the class. So
That's not right.
so the idea is for my folks who are more experienced, right?
To help the others.
Yeah, I need help here. Like, right? We can't even access the box. So how are we going to even do the basic commands, right? If we don't even know how to access the box. Let's talk about ingress and egress. So when I'm doing SSH, right, I want a secure connection with the computer. Is that ingress or egress?
Ingress.
Okay,
Ingress.
cool.
Ingress?
So let's go back to our security groups because you're in the wrong location.
You said that's ingress.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. When I am gonna say SSH, whatever to this whatever box, right? That packet has to travel to the machine, right?
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
when it hits the machine, is it allowed to go inside the machine or not, right? And
Okay.
that is what's ingress. And so the thing is let's take a look at the rules now. And we have inbound rules. Although the interesting thing is, what I kind of find interesting is you have a rule here that says it allows all ports, all traffic So I find that to be very interesting.
I'm just trying to solve this issue. Does this look right as far as adding a new TCP? Because I believe that 22 is a port. And I'm thinking it might be SSH though, but I would try this. I would try this and see what happens.
I
Well,
think that works, and SSH just makes it that it has to be 22, port 22.
Yeah, I was just gonna say rely on the team, right?
And the other thing I wanted to mention, I think that the previous policy
Mm.
that's in there, is it like set to only receive from anywhere as long as it's that from that source? Is that why it's not working?
Ah,
Wait, what?
I don't know what that source is. I don't know what that correlates to. The all
Well,
traffic policy.
see, this is
the
this is
thing is,
what this is what I'm saying. The team is starting to think. I'm not even answering anything, but that is a great question. What do
What was the
folks think about that?
What was the question?
I missed.
What was the last?
basically,
Yeah.
basically, you are allowing all traffic. You're allowing all sorts of traffic. It doesn't matter if it's TCP, UDP, or whatever, from a particular source. If you see, okay,
Okay.
you see where it says port range and then source
Mm-hmm.
on, okay, port range, okay, move over to the right. Okay, go down. Whatever this is, no, up, yeah, whatever this is, I don't know what it is. Like mine, I set it up differently. It has my home, my house's IP address that I get from my service provider in there because I'm only allowing myself to go in there through SSH.
Mm.
And I have mine set up for SSH. I don't know what that is. Like if it seems like it's a security group. Yeah, it is. It is it's a security group of some sort. Now we
Yeah, the
have to figure
default.
out what that security, what that entails. Like, is it does it have a group of hosts that it allows in there, or because I don't know where or how you selected that to be in there to begin with. Because
Yeah.
mine gave me the option to select either my home address or I could put an IP address, but somehow you get a security group in there. So it's
Right.
only gonna allow people that are coming from there. What you can do is if you Google my IP address, it'll show you your own IP address and you can add to it. Yeah, type my IP address. Yeah, it'll show you your IP address at home, wherever you are. Your
It looks like
public
that's
IP, which
your
is what you,
security group.
So
so
does anybody want me to help out a little bit here?
Yes.
Before Lewis does help out, if you go back to that other screen where you had that rule,
Here.
if you look at the top left corner where it says your security groups, it looks like that's the same number. So a little bit to the right. So I think it's your security group.
This is the default security group that we selected when we created the instance, which
but you have
typically
to ask
I
yourself,
don't use it.
what does that default mean? You know what I'm saying? What are the default has some settings. For example, you see where you're adding a rule, right?
Uh-huh.
If you were to add that rule, like instead of custom TCP, put just TTP, like type under SSH, select SSH, and then you were to type in like right where it says, and you were to add this, I'm sure it would let you SSH from anywhere, which includes us. We would be able to SSH in there.
Uh-huh.
But that security group that you have configured there, I just don't know what that is. So I can't tell you what it's like, what parameters are configured in there.
Right.
So
That's yours.
I give 100% to my good friend Ronald. He hit the nail on the head. So let's back up a little bit. He's correct in the sense that this top group here, he hit it perfectly. What the problem that you're having is, yes, you're allowing all traffic to come in and it's wide open, but you're only allowing that particular security group. So what does that mean? That means that anybody who's associated with that security group should be able to send traffic back and forth to that instance. Now, when you think of like, okay, well, who is part of that security group, right? Nobody that I know of outside of the cloud. But what happens if you create multiple instances within the cloud and then you assign it that security group? and now they're a part of that security group. So let's say, for example, you make a box for me, Melissa.
Mhm.
That means that I can do whatever I want to that machine because it's allowing traffic for anybody under that security group. It's really basically set up incorrectly. And so I think one of the things, and Ronald hit it perfectly, right? We really don't want that, to be quite honest. And I saw that part of your settings and I said, oh, well, let me throw a wrench in there and see if they figure it out. And you actually did. So I would go ahead and delete that. Now let's go ahead and add a rule. And then I would go ahead and just click the SSH. And the reason why I would go ahead and click the SSH, and let's go ahead and under source. Yep. And let's do anywhere IPv4. Or yeah, that works. And so the reason why we're going to do it this way is because Ronald made a good point. He said, hey, in order to have some additional security, I'm going to just put my IP address so only I can get into my own box, right? But then I'm going to tell Ronald, I'm going to ask, what happens when your DHCP lease ends? What do you do then?
Yeah, that's because I have a static address, so that wouldn't happen with me. But I see where you're going. I see if it's dynamic, then yeah, I'm screwed at that point. Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. So for those who don't know, right, another way for us, remember when we talked about we only have X amount of IP addresses available in the world?
Mm.
One technique in order to alleviate that problem is the NAT, which I talked about, network address translation, where you have a public to a private. But another way to alleviate that issue that we have is what's called dynamic and static IPs, right? And so dynamic, all it means is you have a lease, meaning, hey, you have a certain amount of time to use this address. And then once the lease is over, it goes back into a pool of all these IP addresses, and then it gets sent to the next person to use, right? And so what it does is it allows people, when you turn on and off your device and all that good stuff, it basically releases the IP address and it allows somebody else to use it when the device is off, or even while it's on too, because it's a lease, right? Meaning that it's only good for a certain period of time. And then once it expires, you say, hey, send me a new one. And so that's the problem that you're going to run into. If you put it for a specific IP address, say like your home address, for those who don't have a static IP address, meaning the address doesn't change, you're going to run into an issue later on that you can't connect because the address has changed. And we want to make sure that we don't do that. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and save that rule. And then
Try and log in again.
Default. Yeah, so let's go ahead and click the inactive one, and then right click the putty, and then hit restart session.
Restart session. Okay.
Oh, look at that. How interesting. We can talk to it now. So we have a question from Evelyn. It says, what is TCP? So Evelyn, there is, when we're sending information over a network, right? There's something that happens, and it's called a packet. So think about it as somebody sending a letter, and that letter is being sent to your house, right? We put it in an envelope, but within the envelope, there has to be some information as to how we're sending this letter, right? And typically, you're basically analyzing what's called the packet now, and you're starting to look at what they call the header inside the header. And then within the header, it gives information as to what this packet is. And so TCP basically stands for Transmission Control Protocol. It's a way in how we communicate. And there's different features that are built inside the TCP protocol. But what I would say for now is just know at a high level, it's basically how we communicate with another machine using a protocol. And we can go into details at a later time on how that works.
I was going to say, now that we're logged into the box, quick question for you. So I'm logged in as EC2 user. How do I even know that I'm EC2 user? And can I change my username?
Yes, you can. So let's minimize that. Type in.
Sorry, isn't there somewhere on here that will show me, like in within this instance? What my username is?
No, so like if you go back to your terminal,
Okay.
you can always type in who am I?
Yeah, I see that I am that, but I was just wondering, maybe I thought there was somewhere on the EC2 instance where I could change it, but I guess it has to be done with code, right?
No, so like if you actually look at the documentations for Amazon AWS, anytime you spin up an EC2 instance, and especially with a Linux distro, there's only two users that always come on the box by default. One is root, you always have root. And then the other one is called EC2 user, or should I say EC2-user. And there's no other users ever. Those are the only two that ever exist blank from an EC2 instance whenever you bring it up, and especially if you have Linux. So the documentation tells you that.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
So now that we're in the box and we have everything, my next question is did we all get this far? So for those who are on Linux and on Mac as well, because it's Unix-like, right, all along. So let's go ahead and let's tackle that one real quick.
I still need help. I didn't find the IP address. How do you to log in to SSHN? I still don't.
All right, so Glenn, bring up your screen, and as a team, we'll go ahead and help you out here.
See, right over here, I'm not sure which IP address or how to or what IP address. This is my IP address of from my ISP, but I saw Ronald, he had, when he ran the SSH command, he had a specific IP address. I'm not quite sure where to go though.
So let's bring up your web browser for AWS.
Yeah, this is it. Can you see?
I see your terminal.
Is that better? Can you?
Yep, I can see that now. So let's go ahead, and looks like you're in your security groups. So let's go ahead and go back to your EC2 instances. Yep, let's take a look at what you got running. Let's click the instance ID. And there you go. You should have your public address. Yep.
Okay.
Or you can even do the DNS, either or. Because
Okay.
your DNS should be able to resolve.
Okay, let's see. Can you see my terminal now too, or no?
Yep, we can see a terminal.
Okay, let's see. So I need to.
So does everybody see on the left-hand side there, you have RWX, RWX, RWX?
Oh.
Yep.
So that's the permissions there. What we just went over, that's exactly what he's viewing right there.
Yeah. So the permissions, let's see. So what did we say the permissions were supposed to be for that, for the key? This is the key I downloaded.
Can anyone help out? What's the permission that's supposed to be for that?
Oh, 755. Let's see.
So I think Evelyn put something in the chat.
Do I even have the right key? Or let's see. I can't see the chat.
Evelyn said 400.
Okay. That's right. No, 400 would just be reading it. Am I running the command, the SSH command, right? Let's see.
Ah, that's your next question. Are you even running it correctly? Can the team help out here? Is he
What's
even
the
running the
user? You
command?
said the username was EC.
Yeah, you're forgetting to add the username. Yeah, you figured it out.
What is the username again? EC2. What did you
Dash
EC2.
user.
Yeah.
say? Okay. Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
Hey, there you go.
I've
Look at
made new
that.
ground. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So welcome back. Hopefully by now you've already seen how to create an EC2 instance, specifically Red Hat, and we're doing it in AWS. So you've learned a lot of good things in there. Hopefully you picked it up, right? So real quick again, you learned about AMIs, instance types, IP addresses, security group, key pairs. I mean, the list goes on. We touched on a lot of different good things here. So make sure that if there was something you didn't understand, go back and watch it again. And if there's something that is still unclear and you've watched it several times and it's just not clicking, go ahead and leave me a comment in the comment section below and I'll make sure to get to them as soon as we can. Or if you found this video to be useful, make sure you also leave me a comment as well. But don't forget, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and share the video with somebody, right? I'm sure there's a bunch of other people that are in their cloud journey as well. And in order to help them out and for them to see this video, share it with them, right? So that'll do it for me, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and I'll see everybody on the next video.